A CIA whistleblower just testified under oath that Anthony Fauci directly meddled with intelligence agencies to cover up the COVID lab leak. Watch this.
Fox News alert, Anthony Fauci's in big trouble. The little man in a lab coat got a lot wrong and never fessed up to any of it. 2 weeks to slow the spread, wear a mask, and whatever you do, don't say lab leak. Well, today, a CIA whistleblower told the Senate the deep state is still covering up where COVID came from, and Fauci helped him do it.
Intelligence community leaders and senior analysts downplayed the possibility that the COVID pandemic originated as a result of a lab incident. Dr. Fauci's role in the cover-up was intentional.
But the cover-up didn't start in 2020. It started in 2015 when Fauci had his own scientists change the rules so he could keep funding gain-of-function research, the kind that was happening in Wuhan. Fast forward 4 years, October 2019, the CDC, Johnson & Johnson, and the former number 2 at the CIA teamed up with Bill Gates' foundation and the World Economic Forum to war game a fake coronavirus pandemic, just for fun.
This was a coronavirus pandemic tabletop exercise, curiously similar to the events that played out during the COVID-19 pandemic. And it was attended by Dr. Fauci and individuals with IC ties like former DNI Avril Haines.
Here's what their pretend pandemic looked like. See if this jogs your memory.
CAPS is a serious respiratory disease. More than half of the recognized cases have required hospital care, creating a huge strain on healthcare systems. The fatality rate is about 10%. Even so, some people only exhibit mild flu-like symptoms, not requiring treatment in a hospital. Alarmingly, those people are able to walk around and spread the virus, not realizing they are doing so. Even worse, international travelers have been arriving at their destinations symptom-free, but within a matter of hours, becoming ill.
Weird coincidence, right? 2 months later, December 2019, China reports its first COVID case. Fauci immediately goes on TV and says it did not come from a lab.
Could you address these suggestions or concerns that this virus was somehow man-made, possibly came out of a laboratory in China?
The mutations that it took to get to the point where it is now is totally consistent with a jump of a species from an animal to a human.
All right, so as we saw, Fauci conducted a tabletop exercise, basically ran a simulation of what could happen in a coronavirus-like situation if there was a coronavirus-like pandemic. And what is really interesting here is right before China announced its first case of coronavirus or COVID-19 in December of 2019, basically, Fauci started telling people of this virus that he first called CAPS, which eerily sounds similar to COVID-19 in that it is a respiratory virus. It affects your lungs. And even if you catch it, number one, there's a 10% chance that you might die, but even if you don't show symptoms, you can still carry it and you can still transmit it. And those are all qualities that we saw later in COVID-19. So this is very, very interesting information that is coming out. It's obviously very damning information. And it will be interesting if Anthony Fauci responds to this with anything.
What Fauci didn't mention? 2 months earlier, he'd already huddled up with the top virologist, and privately, they were all worried about a lab leak.
Dr. Fauci convened the now infamous February 1st, 2020 call. Some scientists on that call privately raised serious concerns about a laboratory origin. Yet, ironically, those same scientists later co-authored the proximal origin paper, which publicly dismissed the lab leak hypothesis. One author received a $9 million grant from Dr. Fauci's own agency after he changed his opinion from lab leak on the private phone call to natural origin in public.
Fast forward to August 2021, the CIA is 5 days away from calling it a lab leak. Then out of nowhere, the story changes.
As of August 12th, the CIA was considering calling this a lab leak, August 12th of 2021. And then That changed on August 17th of 2021.
Right.
And unfortunately, because the CIA would not provide us documentation that we asked for, we have no idea why that changed. It was significantly influenced by Anthony Fauci's injecting himself into the IC.
So Fauci cooked the intelligence to cover up how 1 million Americans died because he had his fingerprints all over that leaky lab. Then the Fauchmeister dropped the hammer on the truth tellers.
Following the CIA's COVID relook that culminated in 2023, the CIA retaliated against analysts supporting the lab leak hypothesis. CIA managers retaliated against them for their refusal to agree with management's middle-of-the-night anonymous rewrite of the analysis, which changed the assessment to a non-call judgment.
Now, remember when Fauci swore under oath that he never, ever, ever, ever funded gain-of-function?
All right, so a couple of things that we've realized in the story so far. Number one, that there was a scientist who was privately claiming that he knew that this was a lab leak. But then, interestingly enough, after receiving $9 million from Fauci's agency, changed his opinion in public to say that this was not a lab leak at all, and it was a virus of natural causes. Then number two, the CIA was about to come out and say that this was a lab leak because there were CIA analysts who claimed that this was a lab leak. But then again, interestingly enough, 5 days later, they all changed their opinions. And we now know why, which is because the management in CIA was putting the hammer down on those CIA analysts who were supporting the lab leak claims. And then in addition to that, he kept funding Wuhan even after being questioned on gain-of-function research by just changing the definition of gain of research to allow himself to be able to keep funding research in Wuhan of this virus that then later on killed millions of people.
Several of the BSEG scientists helped Dr. Fauci rewrite definitions of gain of function in 2015 to lift a funding pause on dangerous research.
So the very scientists that were commissioned to investigate COVID were, in some cases, the very scientists who were complicit in the origins of the gain-of-function experiments that may well have created COVID.
So the guy who may have funded the pandemic gets to run the investigation into the pandemic? You'd think the other party might want to ask some questions too, right? But Democrats couldn't find the room.
Senator Ruben Gallego, Democrat from Arizona, actually walked by us about 15 minutes ago. He saw the media cameras here, and we couldn't tell if he was joking or trolling or not, but he said, hey, what's going on here? And his staffer said, wow, I don't know, and they walked past us. So he's on that committee. He's not in the room.
Earlier this year, the CIA finally admitted it. COVID most likely came from the Wuhan lab. Only took them 5 years. But there's just one catch. The CIA says they have low confidence in their own answer. So they're pretty sure COVID came from a lab. They're just not sure. Rand Paul says the rest of the agencies are still slow-walking documents, while the same people who got it wrong are telling you to get over it. The good news, Fauci isn't out of the woods yet. AutoPen gave him a pardon, but state prosecutors can still go after him. And the feds are looking into whether to open a criminal case of their own. And they should. 1 million Americans are dead from a virus cooked up in a lab, and someone's got to answer for it.
All right, so interestingly enough, now in 2026, the CIA has changed their public opinion about COVID-19, and now they say that they think, or they're almost sure, that COVID-19 did come from Wuhan as a lab leak. But remember, when we were saying that 5 years ago, back in 2020, or 6 years ago now, people were getting arrested for it, people were getting prosecuted for it, people were getting canceled for it online, people were getting attacked, right? We were called conspiracy theorists, but now you have the literal CIA confirming what we have been saying all along for all this time. But the story doesn't just end there, because we now have news that the CIA raided Tulsi Gabbard's office and seized documents related to the JFK assassination, MK Ultra, and more that Gabbard was set to declassify. Watch this.
Tulsi Gabbard's office. Agents hauled out dozens of boxes, files on the JFK assassination and MK Ultra, the CIA mind control operation, which she was in the process of declassifying. Today's whistleblower said it during his deposition, and Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna confirmed it moments ago.
The reason why this is troubling is, A, there was an executive order that the president had directed the full declassification of JFK, but then also to the MK Ultra files. The CIA famously has said that, all documents were released and other documents had been destroyed. So these are allegedly those documents that apparently never existed.
Can the CIA overrule the president?
No, the CIA cannot overrule the president. The CIA cannot even overrule the director of national intelligence. In 1975, the Church Committee, which became the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, specifically ordered DCI William Colby to release all of the MK Ultra files. He famously went back to CIA headquarters and ordered that all of the files be destroyed. 85% of them were destroyed. He was held in contempt of Congress, and then CIA employees lined the halls and contributed cash to pay for the fine that he was ordered to pay. We only know what we know about MK Ultra because of the 15% of the files that weren't destroyed. These are among those 15% of the files. They are mandated to be declassified. The American people have a right to know what is in these files, and the CIA can't raid offices, least of all the offices of the Director of National Intelligence. It's just, real life isn't supposed to work this way. This is crazy.
This is something out of a movie, but the CIA was experimenting with LSD on willing and unwilling participants during the Cold War. For intelligence operations and to exploit people, and it didn't go well a lot of the time. No. And they threw it all in a wastebasket, right? Like, it never really worked. Is that why they don't want anybody to know about it?
I think they don't want people to know any more than what we know about, for example, dosing innocent citizens of San Francisco, California, or a small village in France and putting LSD in the yeast at the only bakery in the village just to see if everybody in the village would go nuts, which they did, of course, or coming up with a program in San Francisco to hire prostitutes to dose Johns and see if they would cough up their innermost secrets. Ridiculous.
All right, so from what has been revealed to us, the public, we now know that under the orders of President Trump, Tulsi Gabbard was supposed to release those files regarding the JFK assassination, regarding MK Ultra, and more. However, CIA, upon finding out that this was going to happen, they raided Tulsi Gabbard's office and they seized those boxes and they seized those files. And like John Kiriakou pointed out, these files on, or at least these files on MK Ultra, are amongst the 15% that were left after CIA burned down the rest of the 85% back in 1975. I mean, from what it looks like, the CIA is acting like a rogue deep state element, and definitely something needs to happen regarding this. However, for now, this is all I have for you. If you enjoyed this video, click that like button and subscribe for more. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.